when we started, right, guys just used radios. There was no, we were maybe to Nextels at that time, right? Now, super easy with cameras and cell phone, to subpoena cell phone records and know software wise, were they under dispatch at the time they had the loss? Well, they can't lie like they used to and get away with it. So that part is also hurting things.
Yeah, I mean, the technology side to me is a double-edged sword, right? And we don't need to go on a big tangent down this, but I mean, ultimately, it still benefits you more than it doesn't, right?
Sure.
Having the technology, being able to track driver performance, being able to, I know we're talking about not only hired, but cameras in the vehicles. That stuff that's still beneficial, to the end user, because at the end of the day, if you don't have that technology, it's just being used against you. Good claim attorney saying, hey, why not? Why don't you have that? Right? It's proven statistically to benefit the general population. And here you are running around not monitoring your drivers, right? It's your civic duty to put good drivers on the road. And there's all kinds of technology out there that could benefit you, and yet you don't use it. So I think ultimately, while it is a hindrance, right, because it can, work against you, the positives still outweigh the negatives in that capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's other elements of the hired not owned of why you're seeing increases that really aren't often discussed, which are rental exposures, right? I mean, the reality is rental exposures were being picked up by these policies for years, and nobody was actually revealing what their rental exposure truly was. So you'd have a fleet of 100 drivers, and then you're also renting 10, 20 vehicles on a regular basis and picking up claims on a primary basis under those scenarios. And nobody actually was factoring that in at the time of completing an application. And it was just kind of a throw in. Well, fast forward 10, 15 years and it's caught up to the industry, right? So that's a big contributing factor that's really not discussed very often. But now, insurance companies and brokers like ourselves that have specialized in this industry have figured out that you need to account for that. You need to do a monthly reporting structure typically to factor all of that in. But that's another X factor that's not really brought up very often in this space.
Sure. I mean, I love everyone's favorite buzzword now on controlling hired and non-owned costs, which is what? Well under dispatch, right? We're gonna put a WUD program in, and look, I think all three of us would tell you, professionally speaking, greatest thing you could do, right? Guaranteed commercial auto for the drivers. But it has some hurdles to clear before you can put that into play, which are typically the cost, right? Keeping in mind that you're giving drivers a low limit of commercial auto insurance. So it's there, it's going to respond if they get into an accident, but it's still commercial auto, right? Personal auto is, $500 to $1,000 a year. Commercial auto nowadays, most places, 5,000 plus a year, and some places upwards of $10,000 a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I think that's the struggle for the industry is well under dispatch will help savings on the hired and non-owned side of things, but there's still a cost factor involved that somewhere, somehow, someone's got to pay for that, right?
Well, look, I mean, the industry's at a crossroad, right? Well under dispatch has been around since I've been in the industry 20 years ago. It's just never been purchased. Now's the time where it's getting dusted off the shelf saying, oh, okay, this is a product that can give commercial insurance to my drivers. Great. The math still is a struggle, right? It was back then, it is now, but what I would caution there is it's coming, right? It's just a matter of time before underwriters on the non-auto hired space say, look, the driver's got to carry commercial insurance. We're taking on too many claims for them having personal auto. So while before the math didn't work, and maybe it still is an issue now, I would start to caution in terms of starting to look into those types of policies on the well under dispatch side, try to figure out the components of how to make that work cost wise, because you could be looking at in the next 12 to 24 months where it's mandated.